Just got a question from Sal asking me what I think politically should be done about the squatting situation. And that's a good question, but it's a very difficult question to answer. Because I've actually been on both sides of that. So my wife and I purchased a property. There were tenants in place, and the one tenant that we had in place, we thought of the property as a shell, and we are going to take the vacant unit and make it new again, and then we're going to move the tenant from the upstairs unit down into that, her and her son, move them down to that brand new unit. We're going to charge them the identical rent that they were paying in the distressed unit that they were living in. It would have had a yard, it would have had several amenities that they didn't currently have, and we are going to charge her the same exact rent. We are not really interested in, I'm not saying you shouldn't, when you buy a property, you shouldn't have tenants vacate or increase the rent. It just wasn't something we wanted to do. She responded no, she wasn't going to pay any rent, and she never did. So she kind of stayed in the property for a very long time. We had to try to go through the eviction process. We arranged to deal with a third-party entity that represents tenants being evicted, and they arranged to deal with us to where we were going to absolve all the rent that she owed us, and give her 1 month's rent just to move out to pay for a moving truck. And something else, we were giving her some other amenity. I can't remember what that was that we're actually giving her. I think there was like maybe $500 or something on top of all that just to get her to move out so we could reclaim this property. She ended up evicting herself through constructive eviction by causing a fire. And the fire department comes and breaks down all the windows, fire hoses the entire property, and made it uninhabitable, and claimed it as such. So she actually ended up getting evicted by being careless. That was actually kind of good news for us because we considered the property a shell, and basically everything got destroyed that we wanted to replace anyways. So I've been on the landlord side of that, and obviously as a property manager and owning a property management company here in Philadelphia, I'm certainly on that side of things now. But I was thinking the other day, I've actually been, technically speaking, a squatter. So years ago, here in Philadelphia, in a neighborhood called Northern Liberties, I rented a property, a nice house, from a gentleman. His name was Lenny, I remember. Well, apparently Lenny's business had gone under, and he himself was a tenant, and he had rented me his house that he already had a lease for, and that he was not paying rent for. Eventually, Lenny was evicted, and I found out when the landlord came knocking on the door. My response was, hey, I paid rent, and I've been paying rent to this guy named Lenny. The landlords were quite friendly about it, quite understanding about it. I was quite friendly about it, quite understanding about it, and I instantly started paying them rent. They were very happy to immediately get a tenant in place. They wanted to keep me as a tenant. I wanted to stay in the property as a tenant, as I thought I actually had a lease, and as I thought I was doing. So it kind of worked out, but it could have not worked out. I was technically speaking a squatter in this property, and I had rights, and I deserved rights. So I was paying for housing to what I thought was legally paying for housing. And if somehow that abruptly came to an end and I had to get all my stuff out when the sheriff came and put a lock on the door, I don't know what I would have done. I would have had a problem, and that would have not been fair. So it would not have been fair to me as a tenant to be unexpectedly kicked out of my home that I had been paying rent for. So I can certainly appreciate tenant rights. So politically, I think all the laws in place are probably pretty close to being correct. I'm kind of comfortable with the tenant rights that are in place because they're in place for a reason. There's a lot of predatory landlords, and I see it every day. Predatory landlords contact my property management company constantly asking us to service them, and we turn them down, a large number of them, on a weekly basis. I can tell you some of the most horrifying things that comes out of property owners' mouths when they're calling us for potential service. So I think the laws are correct. I think the efficiency of the court system is not correct. So that's the big holdup, is basically trying to get someone like myself who is actually into this property to be somehow managed, and to get me into a court system, or to get, it figured out like, hey, Joe White is paid someone for rent. He has proof of that. He should be given this amount of time to stay in the unit. so on and so forth. But that's not actually what happens. So the court system is so backed up, and there's such an inefficiency in the way they do things that these cases go on for a very long time. So it's not the law that I think is the problem, in my personal opinion. So other people have a very different opinion, as much as it's that the fact that the court system takes so incredibly long to process this, and that's where you start running into the huge problem. So to answer your question, I just think making the court system much more efficient would be an answer. I kind of agree with the laws. I hope that helps. As usual, happy rental property investing.